My name is Toni Walker, and it is my great pleasure today to introduce our alumni speaker, filmmaker Katie Koeblitz, Annenberg class of 2009. Although she took a couple of film classes during her undergraduate years at Penn, Katie focused her efforts largely on the Communication and Public Service, or Comm's program as a communication major. She was drawn toward creating visual media and making meaningful content that people could relate to, and majoring in communication gave her the tools to do that. It also taught her how to be an independent researcher, how to dig deep to find the information she was looking for, skills she says she uses every day in the film industry. After graduating from Penn, Katie went home to Cleveland, Ohio. She wasn't entirely sure what the future held for her, and America was in the heart of an economic recession. I think we can all relate to the uncertainty she must have felt. Luckily for her, Ohio offered a tax incentive for feature film production, enabling her to get her foot in the door of the film industry right in her hometown rather than moving to New York City or Los Angeles. After over a decade in the industry and eventually making that big move to LA, she now has 14 producing and directing credits to her name, including the G-Funk documentary, short-form content for Goop, and feature film Galveston, starring Elle Fanning and Ben Foster. It's an impressive resume for a relatively short career thus far, proving that you truly don't have to figure out your whole life before you graduate from Penn. Given that this year's graduation ceremony had to be virtual, we are especially lucky to have a filmmaker as our alumni speaker. And now, it is my honor to welcome Katie Koeblitz to the virtual podium.
Thank you, Toni. And thank you, graduates, professors, and Dean Jackson for having me here today. I'm going to begin with a story about a preschool in Cleveland, Ohio. An overworked hero, a teacher, is administering Rorschach inkblot tests to 4-year-olds. One by one, the children's eyes light up as they discern a field of meadows or a family of bunnies out of these vague blobs. Enter our protagonist, a round-faced young girl with the harshest bowl cut east of the Mississippi. She scrutinizes her inkblots, looks her teacher dead in the eye, and reports, "That's not anything." The lion-hearted educator pushes her pupil, who just grows more frustrated. The child starts to wonder, what is even being asked of me here? Was there any way to prepare for this test? Finally, she surrenders an answer, which would appear printed with all the other answers for Parents' Night. I guess it could be clouds, but it's not. So I'm talking about ambiguity today. And as you sit here, graduates, you may be asking yourselves the same questions that I asked the page of inkblots. What is even being asked of me here? Was there any way to prepare for this test? It's kind of questions that make your brain itch. Ambiguity is just challenging. We're not wired to like it. And while graduating is challenging for every class, graduating into a pandemic feels like staring at a page of inkblots. That's where I feel uniquely connected to this class. Graduating into the Great Recession and graduating into a pandemic are completely different experiences, but they do share a call to stare into the great unknown. So as it turns out, my career has actually dealt in this great unknown 90% of the time, and I have good news. The practice of working with ambiguity builds innovation and creates this character that will stick to you for life. Befriending the great unknown has actually been a key to success for me. I graduated from this beautiful school armed with an elite education and a handful of internships with MTV, VH1, and CBS. I moved home to Cleveland and I started applying for entry-level jobs at media companies in coastal cities. Cut to 2 months later. I haven't heard a peep. I'm still living with my mom. I'm starting to think that maybe my email is broken or I'm terrible at writing cover letters. Every morning I wake up in my childhood home. I give all this medication to our old family basset hound. I apply again. 4 months later. Now I'm starting to feel like I'm broken. I feel really bad. I start to get more aggressive. I make calls, ask for introductions. I'm getting creative, and I get nowhere. This ambiguity is prolonged and torturous. It doesn't look like the movies. I'm pale, my life is weird, there are Hanson posters all over my room, and I'm just growing despondent. This is how ambiguity presents in its harshest form. It's relentless and it's muddled and it feels so uniquely and personally us. 6 months later, I realize that the world that I've graduated into doesn't match the one that I've long prepared for. So it was time to pivot. The flip side of ambiguity is always opportunity. The state of Ohio had just received a tax incentive for film production, and I didn't really understand what that meant, but I knew that movies were coming to Cleveland. I began to visualize this new path. I would actually stay where I was, and I'd build up a resume at home. And to do that, I had to be enterprising. So I got a retail job selling computers. I worked at the Apple Store. I had my blue t-shirt and walkie-talkie and the whole thing. The retail training at Apple is really incredible, and early on they teach you this phrase, dealing with ambiguity. In some ways that means deal with angry, shouting customers when we don't have the answers for you. But that lesson hit me viscerally because I was really already starting to live it. So now I had a job and I had a paycheck. With that plate spinning, I did some research. I found 2 Cleveland-based producers who had won the grand prize at Cannes Film Festival recently with their film called Take Shelter. I watched it and that film was a masterpiece. So I had a place to start. I would find these 2 independent producers and I would learn everything I could from them. I was finally on a path. But I had this constant worry that my version of the road less traveled was just a little too weird. My goal was to tell meaningful stories. I believed then, and I still believe today, that visual storytelling is a powerful tool for expanding minds and increasing compassion. I wanted to create documentary or thoughtful narrative work, and I wondered if the opportunities that were coming to Ohio would even get me on the right track there. But I had to just let those thoughts go. I'd remind myself of the core calling and I'd dig back in, really white-knuckling it into the great unknown, as I simply got started and got experience. Between shifts, I'd call and email those 2 producers, but I never heard anything back. But then one day, one of them needed a new computer, and he came into the Apple Store. In the traditional storytelling structure of the hero's journey, this part's called meeting with the mentor. In my version, it was Tube Sock Tuesday at the Apple Store, and my neon striped socks were really just setting off my blue t-shirt. But it was showtime. I sold Bob Ruggieri on myself just enough to work for him for free. So Bob brought me into his world, and he introduced me to that other producer, Tyler Davidson. I was in, and now I had to earn my keep. So I kept my head down and I worked really hard, just slowly building this sense of loyalty and trust with both of them. Meanwhile, I was working at the Apple Store for 2 years. So when a short production job came up, I swapped shifts with a coworker. But I knew that when a feature film came up, I'd have to walk into my manager's office and ask for 2 or 3 months off. This happened a couple times. So I had to make myself indispensable with them and sell so much stuff that they didn't want to let me go. When I was at that store, I was just peddling iPads sunrise to sunset, and the plates kept spinning. So I climbed my way up the production ladder in the meantime, from those lower rungs, assisting in every capacity, up to the middle, and ultimately to producing. And now cut to your glamorous montage. We're at Sundance and South by Southwest film festivals, and I'm working with John Travolta and Kevin Costner and all this juicy stuff that people want to talk about. For me, I was producing meaningful narrative work, and that documentary work that I'd wanted from the beginning even came back around and showed up. I produced a documentary with Snoop Dogg. I was just sort of like, how did I get here? The rewards of this journey were finally appearing. Those highlight moments are incredible, but they're just that. Between exciting press releases and red carpet moments, I'm sitting at home with dirty hair and my old friend Ambiguity. We're looking for the next opportunity. A couple of years ago, a funny thing happened. In this familiar pattern, Ambiguity gave way to opportunity yet again. But this opportunity had a new reward. For the first and only time, I had the chance to produce alongside a female director. Melanie Laurent was our director on a film called Galveston, starring Elle Fanning and Ben Foster. Produced, by the way, by Tyler Davidson, one of those 2 initial targets who brought me onto that film and who I still work with today. So Melanie's a genius director, and watching her work gave me the ultimate aha moment. I'd been on this path to produce, and I'd always wanted to direct. When I started in the industry, 23% of producers and 7% of directors were women. So while I'd at least seen 2 female producers in my life, the optic disparity between myself and a director was so severe that my subconscious had just shut that door early on. So this path to producing had been pretty slow and arduous, but then following that aha moment, the path to directing has actually been really quick for me. I think there are 2 lessons there. The first is that ambiguity has a fun side. Sometimes ambiguity has a couple drinks and throws you a curveball that actually changes things for the better. Ambiguity can throw rocks at you for years and then just toss you the coolest female French director to kick down the glass ceiling with. The second lesson is that representation matters. When you get through the door, because you will, be sure to turn around and grab someone who hasn't been through before and bring them with you. Those moments of triumph on set with people I admire make me so thankful for the strange hustling years that preceded them. My retail job instilled this practice of uncertainty that served me so well as a filmmaker. I've dealt with anarchist skateboarders overthrowing our sets and earthquakes rerouting us to a new country and everything in between. But here's the thing. Those impossible to predict changes often produce the most beautiful results. The patched together scenes turn out to be the moments that audiences rave about when they leave the theater. I mean this, it happens every time. At this point, when something unexpected happens and we're forced to rework our plan, I'll actually say out loud, this will be the best part of what we create now. So, here we are. We're staring down the barrel of ambiguity yet again. I'm in it right now too. The film industry is totally locked down and I am gainfully unemployed. The most important first step is to really embrace that unknown. Stare it in the face, fall in love with it, laugh at it, whatever you have to do to really understand that it's happening. Every ambiguity warrior creatively moves forward while embracing that discomfort. So, here are the hacks on the creatively moving forward side of things. This is a graduation speech. It's time to drop some knowledge. These hacks all share the theme of duality. Hacking ambiguity ultimately rests on holding two conflicting thoughts as true at the same time. Number one, just get started while accepting that failure may arise from just getting started. Begin in a direction that doesn't seem perfect, and whatever you do, touch it with excellence. Really don't be afraid to try at it. Your relationship to the integrity of your work is ultimately for you, and it's what you can control. Now, the flip side of just starting is accepting that failure may arise. You may fail at this job, or it may fail you. Like his cousin ambiguity, the sooner you get comfortable with failure, the better. Take a wind sprint toward your first failure and find the joy in just starting. Number two, open and close. Oscillate between staying focused and then taking a step back to look at that big picture and check in on others. I personally struggle with getting too focused and having blinders on, and other people struggle with bringing that focus in. If you practice toggling between the two constantly, you'll get so much better at that. Number three, find a sensei and be a sensei. When I was at Annenberg, David Eisenhower was my mentor. How he managed to guide me through writing a solid thesis, I may never understand. Find that person at every step and absorb everything you can from them. And then turn around and teach what you know. Never stop learning and never stop teaching. This reminds us that we know so much more than we used to, but never as much as the great sensei. Number four, care more and care less. Care more about the work that you're doing and what you're bringing to it in that moment. Care less about what others think about your job title. People were throwing me all kinds of shade when I worked retail after graduating from an Ivy, and I thought that was really ridiculous. That was a great job. I worked with brilliant people and I learned the skill of selling myself. Care less about where this job is bringing you immediately, because you'll never internally forget where you want to go and you'll get there. But you can't force it. Just trust me, I tried so many times. And number five, be huge and be humble. I'm speaking to the cream of the crop, and I hope that you're all very well aware of that. At the same time, none of us sitting here is superior, and we're not above hard work and service. Both are true. We are superstars, and we're really small parts of the whole. Be large when the time calls for it, and then contextualize yourself. It takes the pressure off, and it just leads to fulfillment. Ambiguity creates a discomfort of thought, and out of that discomfort comes brilliance. To the class of 2020, as you forge your own paths and experience the highs and lows of your own ambiguities, you will amaze yourselves with your own ingenuity. Trust that that will happen. You're so much more prepared for this than you know, and you don't have to trust me on that one because there's evidence for it. and that's that you're sitting here today. Recall the version of yourself that showed up here as a freshman. Ambiguity was everywhere, and you're here now. You did it. For now, please take the time to really acknowledge to yourselves how much you've accomplished. Finally, I hope that you'll hold close the high intrinsic value of the education that you've just received from your exceptional professors and peers. There are few places as special as this school, and I hope that you'll carry it with you wherever you go next. Congratulations again to the class of 2020 and to the supportive family and friends that helped you to be here today.